September was quite busy, full of exciting bookish adventures. I started off the month by taking a little road trip to meet up with a friend who I think many of you will know. Look at this incredible spread, and look who's here! Kate is here! We're meeting up for tea. This is gonna be Kate's first ever sausage roll. We'll have to get your reaction.
Very excited. Yeah, maybe I'll try. Try a little sample. Oh, it's very hot. Oh, wow.
Yes, it's so fun to see Kate in person though. It's been way too long.
Like 4 years.
I know. But we've done such cool stuff in the past, like the Emma Day. Yes, so.
The mystery walk in the library.
The mystery walk at the library. Yeah, so. They're fun. Whoa, I think this has some kind of cranberry in it. That was lovely. So Kate and I have just been having a lovely time talking about readathons and books, and I feel like I should have been writing down everything we said, because like there's so many recommendations, like the Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. That would be an excellent boutique. Which, okay, Kate just single-handedly resuscitated Boutique Readathon 2022 because she just gave me the best idea for the prompt. And of course, October is almost here. Yes.
Exciting time on BookTube. I just think you would probably ultimately be a little bit bummed if you ended up not doing it. And so now if you have this idea and you go with it, then it'll just make October even more fun.
Yes. There's always room for another October readathon, right?
Always. I did both last year. I'll do both again this year if you do it.
And it was the Heir of Radcliffe?
Redcliffe.
Yes. I think I might go with that one for mine.
Yes. So anyone who's watching this, if you like Ellen Montgomery, if you like Louisa May Alcott, try Charlotte Mary Young. Yes.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think what other books you were mentioning.
Well, there was the Book of Marvels and Mischief.
That sounds so fascinating.
It's written in the 13th century.
A travelogue from the 13th century. That has to be like one of the first travelogues.
It must be.
This is what we originally were going to meet for tea during Jane Austen July. So this is a September, pre-October, pre-Victober, pre-Boutique readathon tea instead.
So now we're saying goodbye to summer. We're done with summer.
Ready for fall. The Agatha Christie with the poison. Yeah, there are a couple of them like that. Guys, post in the comments. We think that Eccles Cake is in an Agatha Christie book, but we can't remember which one. Also, Mr. Kipling. Oh, is so good. I love the tagline is exceedingly good cakes.
It is very pretty. I loved getting to see those Disney design books that you looked at.
Oh, those were so fun.
That'd be so cute in your yard.
Oh, you're right. Oh wow, are they metal?
You can get her to pose on it. It's pretty sturdy too.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cute. She would be very curious about it, I'm sure.
Assembling under a toadstool. And
Incredible.
even actually in North and South, Margaret. Oh my gosh.
Margaret makes a terrarium?
She takes it from the south of England to the north, but it's not called a terrarium. It's called something else.
You totally should do a make your own terrarium in Victober. Awardian case class for Victober with Kate. So this is the aftermath of my getting ready, everything ready for the Book of Cymbeline's book release last night. I was too tired to put everything away, but I had like all of the illustrations out, and at the last minute I realized, like this one, for example, I did not like the background. It was just not the same as the picture I'd worked from, and it just wasn't good enough, so I was like, okay, I'll paint the proper background on a separate sheet, and then I edited them together in Photoshop. This is so cute. You guys will have to look carefully and notice all the book titles because they're all books that you've heard me talk about here on the channel. But yeah, I'm really pleased mostly with how everything turned out. Some of the illustrations I redid, like this one. This did not make it into the book. It was just proportions all wrong, just no good. This, I redid it, and I'm really pleased with the way the second version came out. It has the kayak paddle, which features in the story there. Some of the nap time drawings are probably my favorite. Isn't that so sweet? I did like kind of tweak things in Photoshop. One thing that I did have to add for all of these were her whiskers. Cymbeline's whiskers also are mentioned in the book and how spectacular they are, but they're white. So it was really, I don't know what I would have done. I would have had to get a special kind of paint, I guess, and a very thin brush to be able to paint them on. But what I did was I just basically drew the whiskers. They're somewhere in here on one of these on one of these sheets of paper. Oh, here's the pet store one. The lettering I found very hard to get right. It was my cousin Becky's suggestion that I write it backwards as if it was, you know, you're looking from the inside out at like a store window. So I ended up making it Becky's pet store as a little nod to her. But yeah, the whiskers are here somewhere. I drew them separately and then scanned them into Photoshop and added them individually to each drawing because Cymbeline's whiskers are a big part of her charm. But yes, very exciting to get everything finished and uploaded, and by the time you guys are watching this, the book will be out. Are you enjoying your lunch, Cymbeline? Would you like a little something to read while you have your lunch? She's like, excuse me, I'm eating. I don't care about the fact that I had a book written about me. Look, Cymbeline. She's like, don't care. So I have this pretty package that I thought we would unbox today together, and someone who will maybe join us. Hi, Cymbeline, are you having a nice nap? A nice nap for the kitty? Oh, yeah. So this is very appropriate because the Neko Post is the name of this stationery subscription. It's from Japan. Look at these beautiful stamps going across the front. So yeah, there's a YouTuber I love named Sharla. Charmeleon is her channel name. I think she used to be Charmander when I first subscribed to her, and she's going to evolve to Charizard. I think when she reaches 1 million. I don't know what her goal is, but she runs this stationery subscription with her friend, and she loves cats. Both of them love cats. Charlotte and Ushka are their names. So they often have like cat-themed items, and just there's so many beautiful Japanese stationery items. I've always loved the Mitsukoshi shop at Epcot. The stationery section is my favorite part, so it's fun. This box or package is curated with stationery from Japan. Are you ready, Cymbeline? What do you think is in the September package? I love how they even have their own little packaging, which I'll have to get a separate shot of this. It's hard to see in the light, but they have this whole little design with their cats. What do you think, Cymbeline? Oh, nice pen. Oh, look, this one has cats on it. Look, just like you. Ooh. pet a roll. Look, this has a cat too, so you can always plan for lots of pretty cats. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Oh, who am I going to send that to? And cute little postcard box. Let's open this up. Let's see what's in here. A couple little fun extra things. Aw, look, another cat. See, this is why I like this subscription box, Emily, because it's got plenty of cats. Just like you. Are you feeling nice and sleepy and cozy today? Oh, okay, maybe not. They say, thanks so much for your purchase. We hope you love it. A portion of sales will be used to support cat rescue shelters here in Japan. Love, Charlotte, Ushka, Maro, and Pippin. Maro is Charlotte's cat, and Pippin is Ushka's cat. Oh, okay. Oh, you're done? Okay. Someone's like, and filming session is over. So I'm sitting down to work on the print copy of my book. Here's the first proof, which is very exciting to have and to hold in my hands. There are some changes I need to make. It's funny how like you set it up, you know, in the file and you think you know how it'll look, but like they're just different things that you notice more in the actual copy when you have it in your hand. But overall, I've been so pleased. It's been easier than I thought. When I first was starting work on the Book of Cymbeline, I knew that I could get it up as an ebook on the Kindle store. I've actually done that before. Some of you might remember from way back in the day, I did a book called Magic Kingdom Scavenger Hunts, which actually is still up on Kindle. I sometimes think I should take it down or update the scavenger hunts. It's because it's like little details of the Magic Kingdom that you can hunt down. And a lot of them are still there. And I do say at the very beginning of the book that Disney is constantly changing this stuff or constantly refurbing it. So, you know, not all of these things will necessarily be there. But anyway, I was familiar with the process of uploading the ebook. So I thought that I can do, I'll focus on that and then move on to the next step. And the next step is the paperback. And I didn't realize when I started that there are so many options for print on demand, you know, self-publishing your ebook. And I thought for now I would just stick with Amazon. Kindle Direct Publishing has been very straightforward, and like I'm just kind of getting into this, and it feels like this will be the best way to just get it out quickly, and then I can look into other options. But Amazon is convenient for many people to order through, so I figured I would just stick with this. I might try to format it for hardcover. That's next. After the paper book is I'll think about hardcover and other ebook platforms like Google Books and Nook Books. But it should be the same Amazon link, I'm pretty sure, as the ebook. Or at least there'll be like a little tab where you can, I think, click between ebook and paperback edition, depending on which one you want to order. It's been so encouraging and heartwarming and exciting to see how many of you guys took the time to pick up a copy and leave a review. So major shout out and thank you to all of you who have already checked out the Book of Cymbeline. And hopefully once the paperback's here, could be a great Christmas present for cat lovers, both young and old. So gonna get to work, make these changes, and order my new book. Hello there, friends. I am finally sitting down to do a little September bookish chat for my reading vlog, and the month is already quite advanced. It's just been so busy getting the Cymbeline book first ready for, to come out as an ebook, and then ready as a paperback, and just other real life things that I feel like I haven't done quite as well in my reading as I would have liked. But I have made some good progress, and I have my little stack here. So first of all, we have All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. This I have been prioritizing. So actually this I am like this far through, and it's a pretty hefty book. You know, we have what, 550 pages. Apparently this is like a sort of collection of If Only They Could Talk and It Shouldn't Happen to a Vet. This is our book club pick. So we'll be discussing it the day after this video goes up, October 1st at 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll be emailing out our Google Meet link to, I have an email list, and I'll also post it in Discord. But I'm excited to discuss this with those of you who have been reading it as well. It's really charming. I'd heard so many things about it, but I just had never gotten around to reading it. It's the classic tale of a Yorkshire country vet. So he lives out in this beautiful countryside, and he attends to cows and sheep, and I have to admit, I was never a huge animal person. So like when I heard about this book, like the sort of cozy Britishness and like the scenery of it appealed to me, but the animal side of it never really made me think, oh, okay, I need to read that. Ever since I've had Cymbeline, though, I've definitely become much more of an animal person over the last year, and I'd heard so many good things about it. I had started to watch the new adaptation, and it was a little bit stressful. So when I started to read this, I was so happy to see that like the book's not nearly as stressful as at least the modern adaptation seemed to want to ramp up the anxiety. Kate and I were talking about that when we met up for tea. But the book is definitely more chill, and I loved James Herriot, the vet himself. His attitude is very like just sort of even keel. So this book is nonfiction. James Herriot is writing about his own experiences, although it reads very much like fiction. And actually, I'm surprised he got away with it, because you would think that the farmers he was working for and Siegfried, his boss, like, I need to research this actually, because you would think that people might not like to see themselves in print. The way he tells some of these stories, most of them are very happy, very positive stories about just like the grit and character of the dalesmen in the beautiful Yorkshire Dales. I have definitely found charm and humor. Like, I have laughed out loud so many times while reading this, and it's just so heartwarming, and the way he appreciates the landscape of the countryside where he has come to work is just so beautiful. To me, that does outweigh the sort of what do we say, earthy side, like the more practical, sometimes bloody, sometimes gory side. I didn't know this until I read this book, but there are lots of organs that can like fall out of cows, and you can just like push them back in and like sew the cow up, and the cow will be fine. Like sometimes it slips out a couple times and you have to push it back in a couple times. Yeah, if you feel like that sort of thing is gonna make you queasy and you're really not gonna be able to get over it, then, you know, I guess I can respect that. But I am very glad that I did get over that initial reluctance, because there's so much fun stuff in this. There's Tricky Woo. He's a little dog owned by a rich woman nearby, and James is Uncle James to the dog. The rich woman will send him a present or something from Tricky, and he'll write back thanking the woman, and she'll be like, oh, Tricky was so kind of offended that you thanked me instead of him. Herriot obviously enjoys all these little perks of being Tricky's uncle, so he kind of plays along, but Siegfried, the head vet, is always like rolling his eyes at him. It's just so funny. Here's a passage that I think really sums up the charm of this book. How on earth did I come to be sitting on a high Yorkshire moor in shirt sleeves and Wellingtons, smelling vaguely of cows? Because initially he had wanted to kind of have a cushy life as like just like a dog vet in a city, but it was very difficult to get a job, so he was very grateful just to get this job as a country vet, and obviously it won him over. The change in my outlook had come quite quickly, in fact almost immediately after my arrival in Derby. The job had been a godsend in those days of high unemployment, but only, I had thought, a stepping stone to my real ambition. But everything had switched round almost in a flash. Maybe it was something to do with the incredible sweetness of the air, which still took me by surprise when I stepped out into the old wild garden at Skeldale House every morning. Or perhaps the daily piquancy of life in the graceful old house with my gifted but mercurial boss Siegfried and his reluctant student brother Tristan. Or it could be that it was just the realization that treating cows and pigs and sheep and horses had a fascination I had never even suspected, and this brought with it a new concept of myself as a tiny wheel in the great machine of British agriculture. There was a kind of solid satisfaction in that. Probably it was because I hadn't dreamed there was a place like the Dales. I hadn't thought it possible that I could spend all my days in a high, clean-blown land where the scent of grass or trees was never far away, and where even in the driving rain of winter I could sniff the air and find the freshness of growing things hidden somewhere in the cold clasp of the wind. Anyway, it had all changed for me, and my work consisted now of driving from farm to farm across the roof of England, with a growing conviction that I was a privileged person. I feel like you can't really help but share his conviction that he is a privileged person reading this. One of my favorite chapters so far has been this really sweet portrait of one of the Dalesmen, one of the farmers who owns a huge farm. He's like one of the most successful farmers in the district, but he started from absolute poverty, absolute nothing. And he's worked his way up, and yet he's never really changed his ways. He never spends his wealth on himself. And like, you know, people say that like his most poorly paid worker lives better than he does and like has a nicer house and nicer clothes because he just never spends the money on himself. But when Harriet goes to treat two of his horses one day, he meets these two horses who for the last 15 years have been just put out to pasture. Like neither of them are workhorses. They're in retirement and they live in this idyllic little valley with like everything they need close at hand. And the farmer just says one very telling thing at one point, that they've been with him since the beginning. And when he had nothing, they had nothing. And it's just so sweet. Instead of giving himself luxury, he's giving it to these two horses. Yes, this has really been a delight to read. And actually, I would now like to get the rest of them. You can see it on the back. I'll have to do a close-up. The covers like create a continuous picture when you put the front covers all together. It's cover illustration by Tom Cole at the Artworks. This is the Pan Macmillan paperback. This is another book you might recognize from my book haul from last month's reading vlog. It's Heidi's Alp by Christina Hardyment. This one was actually recommended to me by Kate Howe back earlier in the year when I asked for recommendations from all of you guys. When I met up with Kate, she mentioned that when she recommended it, she, I guess, hadn't finished it. And after she recommended it, she realized she didn't actually like it as much as she thought she was going to. And I feel like I'm having the same reaction. So this is also nonfiction. It's about a British mother who takes her four daughters, takes her daughters out of school, and they go on a trip around Europe, a road trip in this old kind of beat up RV, and they pack it full of books, classic storybooks, because the kind of goal of their trip is to stop at all of these European cities and locations that have inspired classics of children's literature. And that is such a fun concept, and you do get the fun of that concept. I love how she talks about how Hans Christian Andersen sort of followed them wherever they went, almost unintentionally. And she writes about how Hans Christian Andersen was annoyed during his lifetime because people associated him with children's books and fairy tales, and they didn't take him seriously. It just makes me want to sit down and read a biography of Hans Christian Andersen because I don't know much about him at all. I'm only a couple chapters into this because most of my energy has been on All Creatures Great and Small. But I have enjoyed the second chapter, which is about Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates. And again, she does take the time to kind of tell you about the book and tell you about the author. And that's another classic that like I've heard the name of it. I know the kind of general gist, but I've never sat down with it. So my reading list is definitely growing. And you do get a fun look at like the museums they visit. And it does capture the fun of travel, like when you go into a grocery store in a foreign country and like everything is different and there's just this sort of magic to everything. The kind of downsides to this book, so you know, the concept is it's taking some children around Europe to pay homage to these classic European fairy tales. And you would think a person doing that kind of project would love children and love the fairy tale. And unfortunately, the author doesn't really seem like she's, you know, a children person. It's not that she doesn't love her children. It's just that some people look at kids and really enjoy them and then are occasionally annoyed by them. And then other people look at kids and feel like they're a nuisance most of the time, but they do love them underneath it all. And she's in that second category. She doesn't really seem to enjoy the company of children. And she doesn't really seem to have like a deep respect or love for the fairy tales. Like there are some things that she says that are just kind of snide. Like they're just these little pinpricks that ruin the enjoyment of the book. I'm like just one small example. At one point she's talking about one of the storybooks they're reading and how a female character, you know, wins at the end. And the way she describes it is it's an unexpected feminist finale. And it's like, okay, it's funny how you're claiming to be a person who empowers women, and yet you just destroyed the value of that victory of that individual girl. Because her victory in this competition was about her dedication and her skill. And instead, you kind of erased all that and you just made it about her gender. There's just this sort of like second grade, nanny boo-boo, girls rule, boys drool attitude in that, which I really, really dislike. And like that's just one instance of that kind of remark. She just gives things an unnecessary negative twist here and there. So yeah, I think I will finish it, and I'm sure it will be a fun exploration of more of these fairy tales. And I am planning on reading Grimm's fairy tales for Booty Readathon next month, although now I'm feeling, should I switch it to Hans Christian Andersen? I'm sure she'll have I would be surprised if she did not have a chapter or two on Grimm. So it should be fun to read in light of that. I can't remember if I've showed you guys this book or not. I've been meaning to buy it for a long time. It's by Ephraim the Syrian. That feels like a tongue twister somehow. It's his hymns. So this is Classics of Western Spirituality. When did he live? I'm not 100% sure. I came across one of his hymns one day in my Magnificat, and I absolutely loved it. It was just so beautifully written. And I've been meaning to pick up a book of his full hymns to read more of them. Okay, Ephraim the Syrian, the foremost writer in the Syriac tradition of Christianity, was born in Nisibis near the beginning of the 4th century. So he goes pretty far back, but he's very readable and very beautiful. I'm only a couple hymns in. The first one is written as a vigil for the Christmas vigil. So, you know, waiting for the Christ child to be born. But I feel like it also kind of applies to just the vigil of this life, you know, waiting as a faithful Christian to meet Christ either after death or if he comes sooner than that. This hymn kind of celebrates all the Old Testament figures that, you know, Christ's coming was really the fulfillment of all of their efforts and all of their lives. But then there's also this really beautiful passage just about what keeping vigil is and the sorts of people who keep vigil. Keeping vigil also is the worrier whose sleep has been swallowed up by his worries, whose death stands at his pillows, and he watches, worried for years. It is Satan who teaches, my brothers, wakefulness for the sake of wakefulness, so that we might be asleep to virtues, vigilant and wakeful to vices. Keep vigil as bright ones on this bright night. Even if its color is black, still it is splendid in its power. One who splendidly watches and prays in the darkness is wrapped in hidden brilliance in the midst of this visible darkness. The way of life of the hateful one who stands in the daylight is the way of the son of darkness, so that even if clothed by light without, he would be girt by darkness within. Indeed, my friends, let us not forget in our wakefulness. Illicit is the vigil of the one who does not watch as he should. Deep sleep is the vigil of one who watches unworthily. I just thought that was such a beautiful reflection. It definitely hits home with me because I tend to be a worrier. And it is so easy to be vigilant and wakeful to vices. Like you see all the things going wrong in the world and you feel so tense and anxious. This is a really excellent reminder that, you know, that Christ has already won and we should keep vigil joyfully. That's what faith is all about, choosing to keep your joy and keep your peace. Another book that I have been making excellent progress in this month, and I have the physical book here because I pulled it off my shelf, but actually I've mostly been listening to it as an audiobook. Paradise Lost by John Milton. I feel like I mentioned this months and months ago and I just never got into it. But then after I finished the audiobook of Virgil's Aeneid, I thought I would try the LibriVox audiobook of Paradise Lost, and I do really like all the different narrators. Oh my gosh, this sun. See, maybe the sun is trying to tell me don't go off on a long rant about Paradise Lost because you've already ranted and rambled enough. But yeah, I've been really frustrated by this. And I want to go back and look at my notes from when I read it in college seminar and remember if I was this frustrated. Because like multiple levels, it's frustrating. This is, of course, Milton's retelling of the story of Genesis and the telling of God and the devil. The devil is very much present in this book. It starts with him. He's the most relatable character, basically. Even though Milton, like, still paints him as evil, it's not like he thinks the devil is good, but he spends all his time talking about the devil. And one of the reasons I wanted to reread this was that line where Milton says he's going to justify the ways of God to men. And that's a pretty big statement. I mean, it's a little conceited to say you think you're capable of that. It's also a little bit unnecessary because God is justice. So you don't really need to justify God. And yet, in some ways, that is kind of part of the job of faith, to grapple with difficult issues and to justify the ways of God and to explore the ways of God and to try to learn as much as with our, kind of limited mortal understanding, we can learn what is divine and what is, by its very nature beyond us. Like we're still called to that impossible task. But Milton does not apply himself to that task at all. I would say that line is completely false. He makes no attempt to justify the ways of God to man. It's like he says kind of what I just mentioned, that God is justice, God is perfection, he is divine, he's omnipotent. But like he says that and then he kind of puts that idea up on the shelf and then he's like, yeah, let's get to the good stuff. Let me tell you about how the devil built pandemonium and then he built this bridge across the universe. Like it's very vividly told. The pageantry is the word that comes to mind. If some modern day director took the book of Genesis and like the story of the devil and like adapted it into this lavish film adaptation, that's basically what Milton is doing, except in the entertainment medium of his time in the form of a literary masterpiece, in the form of this poem. And there are very compelling scenes. One of the ones that made me laugh is that the devil is obviously trying to get into paradise and one of the angels manages to catch him. And the angel's like, how dare you attempt to thwart God's will? And the devil's reply is, I'm the devil. That's what I do. But then the angel comes right back at him and is like, yeah, you think it's rational to constantly choose to be away from God? That's not a rational choice. This book is a really excellent portrait of evil and how evil is a continual turning away from good. And yet there's always could be this turning back towards good. Like even the angel is like, yeah, just the fact that you've set yourself to turn against God doesn't make that a good decision. Like it's still a bad decision even if you've committed yourself to it. And yeah, just all the like self-deception and like the insidious lies and how evil like aspires to be great and lofty, but actually it's demeaning. It's the servant slithering on its belly. So this is a very good portrait of evil. But yeah, the ways of God are largely absent. I am, of course, coming off of Dante's Divine Comedy, and I do feel like Dante does grapple with trying to understand the ways of God. He's constantly saying to Virgil and Beatrice, his two guides, okay, I see what you're saying, and I know God is good. He is the creator, and I know he must be right. But actually, that doesn't make any sense. So could you explain it again? Like he's seeking to understand, like that poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins, I, wretch, lay wrestling with my God, my God. Like faith sometimes is this wrestling match. You don't get that at all in Paradise Lost. The translation of Dante was by Dorothy Sayers, and I read this kind of essay she wrote about literary depictions of the devil. And when she wrote about Paradise Lost, she said that Milton was basically enchanted by his own literary version of the devil, which I feel like I can totally see that. One of the reasons I wanted to read this to begin with is because I want to read Paradise Regained by Milton. So I thought I should reread Paradise Lost before I start on Paradise Regained. So I think I will continue on to Paradise Regained. Oh my goodness, the sun. And we'll see if maybe that improves at all. I mean, Paradise Lost is obviously about the fall, so maybe Paradise Regained will have more of a focus. Have a better focus, but yeah, just not that impressed with Milton. He's a showman for sure, but there are just lots of problems. We won't even get into Eve. Like, Oh my gosh. Well, I have so many more thoughts about this, but I should save them for a blog post, or I wish I could go back in time and tell my like college self, okay, I have this great paper idea. I'll save these thoughts for my thesis. It's funny. I feel like over the years I have shied away from doing videos just about a classic work, which I read a lot of classics and I talk about them in my reading blogs, but I don't want to do like a solo video about them because I feel like unscrupulous students just search YouTube, watch a couple videos about whatever classic they're supposed to write a paper on, and then just steal all your ideas and put them in their paper, take credit for them. Unfortunately, YouTube does still sometimes have this stigma of like, oh, that's where cute cat videos live, or that girl's wearing sparkly eyeshadow and posts about Disney, so her opinions about Milton aren't worth considering. But maybe I'll use those opinions in my paper to get a good grade. I've had a couple comments on my Jane Austen literary maps where people are like, this was so helpful for class. And I'm like, that is great, but if you used it in a paper, I hope you cited it. Send me a copy of the paper. I'd love to read it, but I better be on the works cited page. Anyway, I should stop rambling on and get down to actually reading some of these books and making some more progress before the end of the month. So I thought we'd do a quick little fall garden tour. Here are some squirrels chattering at us in an accusatory way up there. I can just hear them. So things are, still going fairly strong. Strong-ish. I think it's not been a great year for tomatoes. This is the only tomato I had from my whole tomato plant. And after all this time, it's still not red. The basil, however, is doing very well. I need to make some more pesto. And I did get 2 peppers off this plant before a deer or somebody came along and chomped him. Speaking of vegetables, I never ate any of this kale. Look, other people come and eat it, and then I just don't want to eat it. However, my mom gave me this squash cutting. It was a very small little cutting, and it has leafed out beautifully, and look at that. I'm very excited for that guy to get bigger and to eat him. I'm thinking next year I'll do more with squash because I think the leaves are really pretty, and I just think that would be fun. My elephant ears, I had one over there and one over there. He's still attempting to continue, but I don't know why they weren't very happy, like the tomatoes. This little sweet pea, not sweet pea, snapdragon. I thought I killed it, but when it was still in its pot. But it has come back and has been flowering quite a bit. These two also, when I first bought them, late July probably, they were flowering beautifully just like this, and they flowered nicely for a couple weeks, and then I wasn't sure, when you buy things at the garden center, sometimes they don't flower again, but both of them have been so spectacular, the bleeding heart and the mango lantana. This smells so good. It just smells so citrusy and summery, and these of course are just such beautiful little blooms. One afternoon, I had this in front of me. I was sitting outside. I had this up on the table with me, and I looked up, and there was a hummingbird, like just feet from my face, enjoying the bleeding heart. In fact, I've seen the hummingbird at the sunflowers as well, but unfortunately, I never was able to get my camera in time to capture it. The dahlias, as you can see, are still doing beautifully. I just love how they look, the way they've just got so many layers of petals, and it's been so nice. I never feel bad about cutting them because cutting them just makes them grow more and more. Yes, the gladiolus, of course, have all faded, but they'll be fun to plant next year. I have this deer netting here because whenever I'm not out here, I put the deer netting over the dahlias because they're a deer, and I just know they would love to come and munch. Oh, look, somebody did get a bite of that. My sunflowers have definitely been a buffet for the squirrels and the birds. However, in spite of that, here we are, middle of September, and you know, they still look pretty good. I know there are lots of faded ones. I do have plenty of seeds. I need to go through and see if there are a couple more heads that I should grab for the seeds, but it's fun that they still have flowers going. They're not as elegant as the initial flowers, but I like it. It's like a sort of they look like a flower scepter or walking stick or something. And right down here next to the sunflowers, look at these old friends. This is the aster that Cymbeline destroyed as a baby. It hasn't bloomed yet. It came back so nicely. I was sure it was gonna bloom. Oh wait, look. I see one little purple friend there. I'm gonna give it some more flower food, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, these buds should open up. But look at this, Autumn Joy sebum. It's just so lovely. I'm gonna make myself an autumn bouquet, and I think I will cut a couple of these. But gosh, they're just so lovely. Here, I should take off the this poor thing has been eaten several times, but has come back. Just so beautiful. Yeah, this I bought last year, and it was so delightful to see it come back. And look at this fellow over here. I'm pretty sure that's a tomato plant. Maybe there were just some seeds when I transplanted that, because there was a tomato plant planted around there last year. So funny to see that there. These guys are kind of late in the day, that they're still this guy hasn't even opened all the way yet. What are you doing, sir? It's like 4 o'clock. It is definitely not morning. But I've had lots of moonflowers. Look, I've got like 1, 2, 3 buds just right there. There have been plenty of moonflowers. Yeah, I hear you up there. Don't drop anything on us. And even the moonflowers that have already bloomed, look at that. There's a little seed pod right there. So that will give us some seeds for next season's moonflowers. And all of these guys actually are the morning glory seed pods. So once they get more dried out, kind of like those guys right there, I cut them off and put them in a bag, and I will use them next year. Most of the morning glories from the front fence have died off, unfortunately, and I ended up moving the moonflower from the front fence just onto this chair, because I feel like I see it more in this corner. And this is now my little moonflower chair. This is a Celosia intense with a Z, like intense, but with a Z. And it is just like the one I bought for Cymbeline when she was a baby last year. I went back to the same garden center and they had them again, and they're just so beautiful. This is really just such a magnificent plant. We've still got some morning glories around the front door as well. I got out my wreath and my pumpkin mat. I bought this cute little thing. They're ornamental peppers. I need to look it up though. Like, can you eat them? Because that could be tasty. Tiny little peppers in my salad. It was just so pretty though. And the colors, the red and orange and yellow, seem kind of fallish. Had to have some fall mums, of course. This beautiful orange color. So this is where one of the morning glory pots was previously, next to the fence. And look at this. I think these are from some seed pods. I think those are morning glories, which I don't think they're going to have time to grow before the frost, but that is so funny. There are tons of them. Yeah, you better run. Look, he's still got the sunflower in his mouth. Ah. Rotten thing. I found such excellent Halloween cards this year, and I thought I would show them to you guys before I got them in the mail. Some of them were just from like the grocery store. This one is just so cute with the jack-o'-lanterns. This was a pack that had dogs and owls, but it was the cats were the reason I bought it. This one is just adorable. Nothing but cuteness. Look at the little cats and dogs. I honestly am not sure that I will be able to send this to anyone. It might just become part of my Halloween card collection. And then these two are the star attractions. So are you ready for this? How cute is he? You know what really sold me on this though? The Mando jack-o'-lantern. And then if you pull him out, look at this. He makes all these little, all these noises. I just think that's so cute. My cousin Becky has a reputation for loving Baby Yoda, so she's getting that one. And then this one, I'm gonna send to one of my brothers. I have to decide who's the lucky one who gets it, because it is quite extraordinary. It's C-3PO. He's like a decoration. You can unfold him, and he's holding a jack-o'-lantern. I just think he's so hilarious. How do they come up with these things? Honestly, too funny. And the fact that you can fold him up and fit him in the card, oh my gosh, I love it. I thought I would try to find a spot with a little bit of fall foliage because the leaves are starting to turn. I was looking at some pictures from last fall and remembering just how glorious it was. There's still mostly green right now, but like you really are starting to see it. The gold and the red are starting to pop, and when you drive along or when you go for a walk in the forest, it's like the brush especially looks like some bouquet that you would have tried to buy at, you know, Michael's or Joann's, but like the fake stuff doesn't really compare with the real deal. I can't believe how quickly this fall has gone by. September has just been a blur. It's been so busy, but it's also been really fun, lots of exciting things. Unfortunately though, I don't have much more reading progress to report on. I'm almost finished with All Creatures Great and Small, so I'm super excited to discuss that with you guys. Send me an email, emma@bookishprincess.com if you're not already on the email list or on Discord and you want to participate. I did finish Paradise Lost. It wrapped up with this sort of sequence where Adam gets to have this vision of all of his progeny stretching down through the ages, and it was very reminiscent of in Virgil in the Aeneid, which I just finished reading. Aeneas has this vision. Aeneas is of course for a Trojan prince, and his progeny, his descendants are all the Roman emperors, because that is very much how Virgil was writing it to a Roman audience. So Milton clearly was familiar with Virgil, but I don't think he really liked Virgil. Like, he's constantly taking pot shots at him throughout the whole book. At one point he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna waste my time writing about games, because Virgil has a whole book about, you know, the Roman games that they'd play. It's pretty thrilling. It's like watching a football match or, you know, some kind of athletic match, except written in poetic form. But yeah, and there are other little instances where Milton's like, yeah, well, this Eve was more beautiful than any ancient goddess, which is just like, Milton, calm down. I can't help but compare Milton and Dante, and I'm afraid I'm Team Dante. But yeah, unfortunately, Ephraim the Syrian and the Chinese Alp, I am still planning to get to them, theoretically, but I haven't made much more progress. The sun is coming out to say hello. My lighting in videos lately has just been, I mean, it's pretty. I did share my October TBR in my Boo to You Readathon announcement. I have lots of fun books that I'm reading, inspired by different lines from the Haunted Mansion script and ride lyrics, the Grim Grinning Ghost song. So if you haven't yet, make sure you go and check that video out. I mentioned reading Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis recently. This is his kind of space fantasy science fiction book. I really liked Out of the Silent Planet. I didn't expect to. So I'm excited to continue on with Paralandra. And then also next month, this month, of course, our book club pick was All Creatures Great and Small. Next month it is going to be My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. Should be a great aura of foreboding, kind of Halloween-y, suspenseful read for the spooky month. And then the other book that I have a big update for you guys is the Book of Cymbeline. I got my second proof, and I'm just so much more happy with how this one came out. don't know if you guys can see. I just feel like it looks a lot better, all these little tweaks that I made. It was funny, when I got the first proof, I was like, okay, a lot of things are wrong, but I can't, like, what exactly is wrong? It was hard to put my finger on it, so I was pulling every book off of my shelf and like examining, okay, where did they put the page number? What does the formatting look like for the chapter heading? You know, did they use the word 2 or 4 in the dedication? You know, I was really trying to break it down. So this is up now as a paperback. It should look basically just like this when you order it. It's $9.99. Obviously the ebook is going to be cheaper. That one's $2.99. So they're both available. Thank you again so much for all of your encouraging words and support. It's just so kind. Because it's a little bit daunting to try something new and, you know, venture into print, into, you know, getting your own book out there. But all of your support has just really lifted me up so much. I hope you all had a wonderful September. As always, I'd love to hear about your reads, your past reads and your upcoming reads down in the comments below. If you haven't yet, give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm sure I'll be doing some fun Boo to You content next month. I hope you guys have a magical and a bookish day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.